There was speaking of coffee, at the coffee place, there was a homeless man with a shopping cart in the line at the perk up.
You know what? To be fair, if I also did not have a home, but did manage to grift a couple bucks, coffee probably would be my thing.
He asked for a cup of whipped cream with a cherry on top.
Oh my god, I stand this guy. He sounds like a homeless man version of my younger sister.
Yeah. No, I was driving up and I see him in line behind a car, just like staring at the shopping cart, just like this or whatever. Just like looking around. I thought I locked eyes with just the shopping cart and went, that's weird. But apparently, he saw me staring and decided, I'm going to meet you, and now you're staring into my eyes. And I went, oh no. And then he did this like gesture like, hey, you can either cut in front of me or don't be afraid, get behind me in line. I was like, I don't know why you did that. I'm gonna go to the other line now.
Yeah, that is just abnormal enough to be concerning.
Yeah, so I went into the other line, which is where Chris was. And like Chris has this like really like almost like awkward smile. And I'm just like, you good? And Chris is just like, this homeless guy just is really weird. And I'm like, really? Is he? Is he? That doesn't surprise me at all, I suppose. And then, like, the homeless man leaves, and then both Chris and the other person working there are both just, like, almost go into a laughing fit about how, like, awkward their conversation with this homeless man was. It was really funny.
It's hard when there's an established, like, social interaction, and then you have to deal with somebody that is not interacting in the established way. It's always weird.
Mm-hmm. It's like, sir, how are you going to drink this cup of whipped cream with a cherry on top? Like, oh, can I get a spoon too? Please. But what can you do? That was my morning. Also a little bit of shop talk with my dad about the boat and stuff like that. Which, like, weirdly, that's not the part that I was expecting to like get satisfaction out of when thinking about like being in a shop and building and working on stuff. Like just talking about the structure and building and what things are put together was like weirdly like, oh man, I haven't had a conversation like this in forever. This is nice.
Yeah, you start to miss it after a while.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, my morning was wake up, work out, go get coffee. Yeah, overdid it again. I like stopped for coffee, got some for my mom, and I got home. And she's just not here. So like I did that like wandering around thing you do when you don't know where your parents are, but like they could be lurking around any corner.
They're waiting for you.
And then I like text. I was like, hey, I picked you up a coffee. I didn't realize you were leaving. And then she's like, oh, don't drink it. I'll be there. I'll be back soon. And that was at like 8:30 as well.
Some time ago. Well, don't drink the coffee.
Well, yeah, no, it's in her room.
Don't drink the Kool-Aid, Liv. Don't drink the Kool-Aid.
Well, Kool-Aid's kind of gross and super sugary, as opposed to coffee, which is kind of gross and super sugary. So I won't drink the Kool-Aid, and I also won't drink her formerly hot coffee.
Yeah. I mean, microwaves exist for a reason, I suppose.
Yeah.
You know,
and
then
that's what she does.
Corey would microwave his coffees, and the bottoms of the cups would get hardcore burnt, and then you go, is that good anymore? Is that good?
How do you burn a cup of coffee in the microwave?
I have no idea.
It on for too long? Ugh.
I don't know. Maybe it was just like just one of the, like a really cheap, like paper cup or something like that.
Even okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Like he took it out one day and you saw that the bottom of it was just black, and it's like, that's not good.
No,
you don't want to drink that. And he's like,
you put it.
I do though. I do.
You put it in for 30 seconds, you stir it, you let it sit so the heat distributes, and then you put it in for another 30 seconds if it's still not hot enough. You don't just put a cup of liquid in the microwave for 5 minutes, Corey.
Unless it's got noodles in it.
You don't put a cup of noodles in for 5 minutes, though.
It's like 3.
Yeah.
It's kind of a good chunk of time.
Yeah, but it's not... But 5 minutes... The difference between 5 minutes and 3 minutes when microwaving things is immense. That's
fair, I suppose.
I've lit enough stuff on fire in microwaves to know that one.
Oh my goodness. I remember in high school, there was like in the, I guess it was the music hall for Palmer High School. There's a microwave in the, like, I don't even know what to call it. It's like it's a lounge that's just connected to the music and drama teacher's office. Mm-hmm. And you're like, hey, you can just use this if you want to. Very nice teacher, office. You know. And one guy, he puts his sandwich in there. It's like, I'm gonna put my sandwich in there, and I'm just like looking at it. I'm like, are you sure? It was like a something that should be warmed up. It wasn't just like a ham sandwich that you decided to put in a microwave. Yeah, something like that. It might have been like a burger or something. And I was like, and he put it in with aluminum foil. Oh. And like, he's doing it, and I'm trying to stop him, like, but I'm also not just saying don't put that in there. I'm like, hey, what are you doing there? He's like, oh, I'm gonna put my thing in the my thing. I'm gonna put my burger in the microwave. It's like, all right. Do you need to do anything to this thing before you put it in there? It's like, no, I don't think so. It's like, are you sure? It's like, do you think it needs that much wrapping? It's like, yeah, I think so. It's like, okay. He puts it in. He pushes the timer button, but before he pushes start, I'm like, do you want to take the aluminum foil off of that first? And he's like, oh shit. And then he like rips it off. Okay. And then he puts it in. It's like, there you go, champ. It's like, oh,
sometimes the non-confrontational route is not the correct one. Mm-mm. Sometimes you just have to be direct with people.
I was like, my senior year of high school was weird because it was my senior year of high school where a bunch of new freshmen showed up, as every semester it happens.
As you do.
But a lot of those freshmen became a part of the theater program. So I got to meet a lot. I made a lot of new friends that were significantly younger than me, you know? And they're all part of the theater program and stuff. But there was like this weird phase, like the beginning to like halfway through my senior year where everyone was like, Chase is awesome, but he's really big and really scary. Which I literally, once a friend of mine went up to me, or we talked one day, and he was like, I'll be honest with you. Like, if someone's going to cause problems in this place, I'm going to go to you, Chase. And I'm like, why? It's like, because you're really big and scary. And you can be really intimidating when you want to be. And I'm like, really? Me? What are you talking about? And then like another freshman who is like one of the smallest people ever was like, oh yeah, no, yeah, you can be pretty scary sometimes. I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. School goes on for like another month. And literally after that next month, they are basically saying, I have no idea why we thought you were scary. You were the biggest teddy bear we've ever met. And I'm like, that's what I thought, you know?
Yeah. It's always weird. People always are like, I'm just like a normal person until I bring up the fact that I actually do have a black belt in martial arts and trained in martial arts for like 5.5 years of my life.
Well, it's because you're a jock, you know, and you just don't want people to know it.
Yeah, like, I don't mind being seen as a jock, but as soon as I'm like, oh, well, yeah, no, I actually have my black belt. I've competed state tournaments. I was actually, a junior instructor for a real long time because they didn't want to actually like hire a 15-year-old to be an instructor. And then from that point on, people just get really weird about how scary I am and how strong I am and how, oh, she could just beat me up. And I'm like, I stopped training when I was 15. I can't do 10 push-ups in a row anymore. Like, I can pick things up and I can throw people around, but I don't like hurting people. And I'm not nearly as strong as you might think.
You are quite strong, though.
I am pretty strong.
I'll give you the credit that you are actually very strong.
Yeah, I mean, but like, think about what I do. I work at a dairy, and I live on a farm.
And you have to lift cows a lot. I understand.
There is actually a decent amount of cow lifting, prodding, and pushing.
Hey, that's good.
At the dairy.
Let's go cow tipping.
Very difficult to do. I haven't quite succeeded at it yet.
Okay.
But like, as soon as you drop the black belt thing, people just like, that is now your personality, is the big scary black belt, and it's like, please stop, please.
Well, it's the fun thing is because that's what always Matt just would bring that up all the time, especially
yes,
like when we're like when I first met you when we were in his class. Like he'd be like, "Oh, that's Olivia. She broke a board on this stage." I was like, "Oh, really? It was pre-cut, right?" It's like,
no. Pre-cut boards are for babies.
Yeah, well.
Or for Taekwondo students. So same difference. I did know somebody
that has a black belt in Taekwondo and also could like kick the royal shit out of me.
I did actually train in Taekwondo. I think I got actually really close to getting my black belt in Taekwondo as well. But whenever we do demonstrations or our graduation ceremonies or tests, it would be a pre-cut board. So no matter how thick it was, it still had like a centimeter or more chunk taken out of it, which made it just too easy.
Yeah, and it's broken.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
it's way too easy.
Even I was like, let me hit this. And it was really freaking easy.
Yeah, so like, it's way more satisfying to actually use your hand to break a 1-inch thick board without the cut. But they're like, oh, but what if you fail in front of people? Or what if you hurt yourself? Like, get good. Get good. Train. Consider.
It's called test your might.
Training?
Bro.
Consider practicing. Consider getting stronger. Consider visualizing actually breaking the board instead of just hitting it. Like, there's stuff you can do to actually do this without cutting the board.
Mm-hmm. Have you seen...
I'm really biased.
You're fair. It's fair. Have you seen the video of the kid and he's trying to break the board, I think, with his foot?
Yes.
And it's like at a tournament and there's like there's probably like 50 people, so many parents, and then all the other kids that are in the class. And like this coach is like supporting him so hard, like in an aggressive way. And then like he's crying and then he finally breaks it and everybody's like, oh my God. And like, it's like one of my favorite videos on the planet.
Yes, it is so adorable.
I love that video. Anytime it pops up on my Facebook feed, I'm just like, I am now happy for the rest of the day.
It's just too cute.
Yeah. Speaking of happy for the rest of the day, we're doing it live. I don't know what that means. I'm sorry. Here.
Yeah. Re-record.
Start over. New segue. Speaking of bad intros, we're doing it live.
There we go.
There it is. See, I did it. I did it correctly.
Yeah.
We're doing it live. I am Chase.
And I'm Olivia.
And we're doing that thing. We're doing that podcast thing. Okay, so for the past 2 weeks, I've had something on the table of like, let's talk about this, but it keeps on not being talked about because anytime I bring up a comic book or really anything, we'll talk about it forever. Like, you know.
It's a bit easy to do that.
I mean, and that's literally why I was like, hey, why don't we start a podcast?
We're long-winded.
Yeah.
Hopefully in a vaguely interesting manner for you listeners.
Vaguely. My dad did start listening to the podcast. He listened to I showed him the Netflix episode.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, watch this while you're working on the boat in the garage, or listen to it, I mean. And so my mom and my dad were listening to us talk, and I could hear it through the vents in my room. And it was like, ooh, that's weird. Ooh, that's weird.
Yeah. I had friends listening to it, and they have, except for my sister who started listening to it out of the blue. Hi, Maya, if you're still listening. Everybody I've shown the podcast to is like, it's not for me, and stopped listening.
Yeah.
So I don't have to deal with that. I don't have to deal with the mortifying ordeal of being known.
Yeah. And my dad at least said that, my mom really likes the podcast, as far as I know, and is actually she hasn't, because she never really isn't an opportunity to be like, I'm just going to listen to this while I work on this and this. She's never really done that before, so she doesn't really think about that much. But my dad was like, you guys sound really good. You guys sound like you know what you're doing. I'm like, well, that's a good start. He's like, but you guys don't really necessarily talk about things that I, am interested in. It's like, that's fair. I'm glad that you at least gave it a shot.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely not.
He's not our audience.
I don't know if we have a target demographic, but I feel like your dad falls outside of those lines.
I would say so as well. Which is totally fine.
Never put to mind trying to figure out what our demographic is.
People that are just as bored as we are?
Maybe. Okay, but you've had a topic that you've had on the table for a couple of weeks now.
Hey,
and if we
18 minutes in. So, I mentioned it briefly, but just talking about hey, we started a podcast and stuff like that because you and I have a very we have a specific way of how we talk to each other. One conversation will lead to another, and we just we've been good friends for a little bit now, so it was perfect. But also because you and I both listen to podcasts on our own collectively, probably quite a bit.
On our own collectively.
Do we need?
We both listen to a lot of podcasts.
Yes, we do, and we listen to different kinds. But if you're listening to this or watching this, please just keep listening and watching. But I thought it'd be interesting and fun to talk about the podcasts that we listen to and talk about maybe from what those we sometimes will just through osmosis pull into making this show, and just stuff that we enjoy listening to. Yeah, kind of like our comic book
our intentional and unintentional influences.
Yeah, so it's kind of like our comic book episode way back. Was that episode 2? Was it? I don't remember.
2 or 3, I think.
Yeah, but we're gonna just talk about podcasts that we really enjoy listening / watching, and I'll probably link them all in the description to be hey, go check these out. But then still listen to us, because it's more important that you listen to us, but then also check out these people that are more talented.
Yeah, or further along on their podcasting journey.
That's better. That's more positive. That's glass half full right there.
Yeah, I'm trying. I think that maybe bashing our own podcast is not necessarily the best way to get it out there.
That's fair. You know what? I understand. I just think it's funny,
Yeah. The thing is, I pretty much, with the exception of this podcast and 2 others, I exclusively listen to fictional or actual play podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
I listen to our podcast because I am a narcissist. I listen to the Aegis Comics of Alaska podcast. The podcast because I like knowing what's going on in the comics industry in Alaska, and I love Lou and Amy. So, of course, I'm going to listen to their podcast.
They just got a new co-host.
Yeah. I'm not actually up to date on their podcast yet. I keep getting distracted.
Yeah.
And I listen to My Brother, and Me, an advice show for the modern era, which is a comedy show.
Mm-hmm.
But still doesn't technically fall under the scripted or actual play umbrella.
Yeah.
So
I would say My Brother, and Me is a very it's a podcast that I first of all, need to really listen to, because the bits and pieces of it that I've listened to, I really enjoy and stuff.
Great way to break into that is to watch any Mabim Bam.
Mabam Bam.
Mabim Bam. What are they called? Like animatics on YouTube.
Yes, those are mostly where I get my Mabam Bam.
Yeah. I love them to pieces, and they've gotten it's like 508 episodes under their belt at this point.
It's a lot.
Do you want me to just go first now that I've already started talking about
I was going to say, Olivia, go first.
Okay, cool.
Age before beauty, even though I'm older.
Yes.
But also prettier than you. You
Fair.
go first.
Touche. Okay. I'll accept that, I suppose. So My Brother and Me is a podcast hosted by Justin, Travis, and Griffin McElroy, who are two of them. Justin and Griffin used to work for Polygon. They're kind of video game guys, creatives, journalists, whatevers. They do a lot of YouTube videos like Polygon's Monster Factory series, which is really good. A couple other things all through Polygon. They quit Polygon, now they kind of just podcast full time. But they do a comedy podcast with their brother Travis that takes listener submitted questions and Yahoo answer questions and gives really terrible, hilarious advice. And I have to, I didn't start listening to Mabim Bam until probably 2017, 2018. I would definitely say it's influenced my humor greatly. But it's really, really good. Really good. Definitely would recommend. If you like any artists who are online at this point, they probably are also fans of My Brother and Me. So, that is very popular. If you haven't heard of it, you're either A, living under a rock, or B, don't listen to enough podcasts. Because I think between them, the McElroys probably have 12 podcasts.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. And that's including good. The podcast that they have collectively with their spouses and things like that, right?
Yeah, so there's My Brother and Me was their first podcast. I think Travis has I know he does Positivitini, and I think he has another podcast he did with friends. He also has a podcast with his wife, Teresa, called Schmanners, which talks about etiquette in our modern day and age. So that's 4. They also do the Adventure Zone, which, if you haven't heard of it and haven't listened to it, I'm going to talk about it more later.
We've talked about it briefly, but yeah, Adventure Zone is definitely something I just wanted to hear you talk about as well today. Yes.
And then Griffin also does Rose Buddies, which was a Bachelor themed show that
I was
he did with
hoping
his wife.
It was going to be the sequel to Air Bud or the Air Buddies movies, but
no, it was like him talking about each week of The Bachelor with his wife until they decided The Bachelor kind of sucked, and it turned into their new podcast, Wonderful, where they talk about things that interest them, very much in the theme of this, except way cuter. See, then there's the McElroys will be in Trolls 2, which is an actual podcast that they do. And they were in Trolls 2. It worked. Then they do To Death Do We Blart, which is their... they rewatch Paul Blart Mall Cop 2.
I was just about to say, is that a Paul Blart friggin' podcast?
They watch Paul Blart Mall Cop 2, specifically 2, every Thanksgiving, and record a podcast about it.
That's super funny. That's awesome.
Right? And then Justin...
That one I didn't even know.
Yeah. Justin does... what's it called? He does it with his wife, Sydney. It's a podcast about health. I don't remember. Oh my god, I'm a fake fan.
Fake fan. Fake gamer. Fake fan.
Wonderful. I'm gonna look it up. He does a podcast with his wife that's about like medical malpractice, stupid trends in history for... Oh, Sawbones. It's called Sawbones. And he also does a new podcast, which is very ASMR-like, which is it's called The Empty Bowl. It is an ASMR serial review podcast.
Audio people didn't see the look that just went on my face, but that sounds like...
It was an excellent look. It is actually, like, super soothing. I cannot, for the life of me, ever remember the name of the co-host. But
the cow host?
Really? The co-host.
Okay, there it is. There it is.
And it's always like, all right, so today we're going to be talking about the Captain Crunch. Oops, all berries. This is a great cereal. It's so soothing and calm, and it's like...
How long are episodes of that?
I think there's like 16 episodes of that.
But like, how long are the episodes? Are they like...
Oh, like a half hour,
Jeez Louise, I can't even... I can't even think of, like, how do you talk about Captain Crunch for half an hour?
It's surprising. Oh, let's see. Yeah, The Empty Bowl, 37 minutes is about the average.
Oh, okay.
It's like scrolling through. And there's actually 33 episodes.
Oh, my
I am
goodness.
wickedly behind.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. It's just real good. It's very soothing, and it's just, the concept is hilarious. But yeah, my brother and me, that's 10 podcasts, if not more, between them. And between other people.
And you listen to all of them at all times.
I actually don't listen to all of them. I'm super behind on
Empty Bowl.
Wonderful.
It's the important one.
Super behind on Empty Bowl. I've only listened to a couple episodes of Paul Blart and Trolls. Started listening to Schmanner's Hardcore, fell off the train. Never really got into Sawbones because medical horror sometimes freaks me out. I have listened to probably 200 episodes of Mabim Bam.
That's a lot.
I have listened to every single episode except 2 of Taz, The Adventure Zone. But my brother and me, my favorite bit right now is probably their Haunted Doll Watch, where Justin will find an eBay listing for a haunted doll, because that's something that people sell on eBay.
Yeah.
My favorite is when he'll do it at a live show, and then somebody in the audience buys it.
That's awesome.
I don't know why people need to buy haunted dolls, but it's weird and hilarious every time.
Mm-hmm. I have one of those.
You do?
I have a haunted doll. It should be haunted, at least. It's fucking terrifying.
Oh,
it's when my mom was a nanny, you know, as a gift, my mother bought the child, the girl that she was watching, like this, like at the, I think of the age to scale child doll. It's like, it's going to be hard to tell in the video, but it's like a 2 feet tall, 2.5 feet tall doll, like a little girl. Pretty, okay. Like, it's pretty tall. And
I'm uncomfortable already.
Yeah. Anytime I see it, it strikes fear into my very soul.
Lovely.
I know. And
yeah.
It's good times.
My grandparents used to send us like glass china dolls for every birthday and whatever. Mm-hmm. Like every time they'd come up to visit, they'd bring us them because my step grandma's mom had a lot. That was a thing that people just did for a long time. It's just pass on these creepy dolls. So we have like an entire tote of them in my basement.
And that is where they shall remain.
But I am 90% sure that at least a couple of them were haunted. And B, I am not going to expand on this story today, but also slept in the same room that those dolls lived in at one point when I was visiting my grandparents, and I am 90% certain that I was possessed for a little bit.
Now, hold on.
No,
Hold on.
There are witnesses.
You're gonna bring that up, and you say you're not going to expand on this.
I am not going to expand on it past there are witnesses, and I am 90% certain that I was possessed by a dead woman.
All right. Okay. Are you still possessed by the dead woman?
I hope not. That would make the last 9 years of my life pretty awkward. If this woman was just like trapped in here.
What if you wake up tomorrow and you just feel like a completely different person?
I would say that's par for the course for waking up on a Saturday.
That's fair. You know what? That's fair.
See, Friday's my only day off. And so waking up on a Saturday is always a drag.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
So, I may never know if I'm still haunted or not.
I guess we'll
just have to find out. Yes, but, so, I am a proponent of, I really enjoy Haunted Doll Watch on My Brother and Me because, like, I relate, but also, like, this seems sketch as hell, but I can't say no that this isn't real.
That's fair. Hey, yeah. At some point I'll show you the doll that's here, and we'll figure it out. You know,
we put it on eBay.
We'll sell it.
Sell it on eBay. Just tell your mom it went missing.
Yeah, I know. I did tell her to sell it, and she was like, "No, I'm going to give it to your sister's kid." I'm like, "No, don't scar her."
Yeah, no. I mean, I have a permanent discomfort of glassy-eyed dolls now.
So you haven't seen Annabelle yet?
I mean, I'm familiar with the concept. But also, like, a great fear of the story of the little matchstick girl who, like, froze to death because she was selling matches and didn't have any food or good clothes, and so, like, she hallucinated that she saw her grandma every time she lit one of these matches, and then she just froze to death.
I've not heard that story.
We had a doll with that story, like, imprinted on a card attached to the doll.
Nope, don't like that. Don't like that.
Right?
Don't like that.
Why is this? Why is this something you want your grandkids to have in their bedroom? Very uncomfy situation.
Yes. We did get a little sidetracked there, which is the par for the course. The plan. Yes, it's fine. But
My Brother and Me, great comedy podcast, great gateway drug into the world of McElroy podcasts.
Yes. Yeah. I really want to watch. I want to watch My Brother and Me, or listen to it. I really want to. Mm-hmm. Here's the thing, is because I also listen to a lot of podcasts. So in my head, I'm just like, do I want to stop watching this when I normally listening to this to listen to something that I don't know if I'm going to like yet? It's kind of like the safety thing of like, I know that I like this stuff, so I'm just going to always listen to this. I don't know if I will like this or not. It's a little different with the McElroys because I just started listening to Adventure Zone and been really enjoying it. I really like the Adventure Zone because it's just, they play D&D differently than anybody I've played it with.
Yeah. They have upped my standard for what I enjoy in D&D to a point that I've never been able to find an in-person game I truly enjoy. Yeah. Which is unfortunate, but also like someday. Yeah. Someday I'll find it.
I'm only at the beginning, so like I'm listening to when they're literally all learning the rules still, and like I can't remember which one DMs. Griffin. Yeah. And he's like, I've never DM'd before, so we're gonna just see how this goes. Like, I'm still in that phase of them playing, and yeah, but they're also just hilarious, and like the amount of times that they'll just reference just modern day things in character is just hilarious to me. I like fourth wall breaking when playing D&D because I do that. Yeah, I do that, and then like a specific DM, which I will not name names, but you know him, will be like, "No, you can't do that," and I was like, "But come on." Let me have fun.
Let me have some fun with Fantasy Costco, all right?
I did listen to that. I did.
Yeah!
It's so good.
Sorry for peaking my audio.
No, it's good. It's fine.
God, I love the Fantasy Costco jingle.
Mm-hmm. It's really good. It's really funny. I really like it, and I've been listening to it while I grind sectors and locations in Assassin's Creed Syndicate and stuff like that. Anytime a cutscene and story is not being told in that game, I was listening to Adventure Zone, which was a good pastime.
Totes valid.
Yeah, so I'm kind of just jumping into narrative stuff right now. I have been listening to Critical Role for a while, but I got to take long breaks from that show. I really like everybody that's in that show, but there's something about the structure that just doesn't like allow me to just listen to it all the time. I love every single person in that show immensely and will watch the compilations and funny bits whenever they pop up on YouTube, like every day. But like sometimes I'm just like, I don't want to sit here for 2 hours and listen to this.
Yeah, I just don't have the attention span for it, and it's pretty dense.
Yeah.
So, But
these are people that all of them, I was following their careers and the stuff that they were doing even before I knew what Critical Role was. Because I was, before scenic designer for theater was like the goal. Before that, it was literally voice actor. And I was like, I want to hang out with like Matt Mercer and Troy Baker and Nolan North. I want to make games. I want to make cool game voices with those guys and stuff. And that was, hey, if it happens, here's my resume. But who knows? Mm-hmm. But so I was following them. So part of me was just like, I just want to just see them perform more, which is always fun. So I'm starting narrative stuff. I think Marvel started there was a Wolverine podcast that they started some time ago. It was called like The Long Dark or something. And it's about Wolverine getting stuck in Alaska.
I didn't know that. I haven't listened to it. I think that ran in like 2016.
Yeah, it was a while ago, and it's like 10.
They've got a couple other podcasts, I think, up and coming, though.
Yeah.
So.
I haven't listened to a lot of that stuff. I started that and kind of like, it's okay. No, for me, and basically where my inspiration for a lot of like this show and just like what I think of creatively comes from specifically Rooster Teeth. And they, as a company, have like 20 podcasts. They have a lot, Yeah. Almost every like division of their company has a podcast.
It's pretty impressive.
For the longest time, the main podcast, which is just called the Rooster Teeth Podcast, was called the Drunk Tank. And their logo was such. It was a tank with a beer on top of it.
Wow.
They stopped getting sponsors because that was what it was called. So they changed it to the Rooster Teeth Podcast. So it makes sense.
Yeah.
But they've been doing that for years. They've been doing that basically since they started the company. And it's great. It's the first initial podcast that I like thought about when I was like, I want to make a podcast. It'd be great if I made one like this. Mm-hmm. I used to listen to that a whole lot more than I do now. Now I mostly listen to Funhouse, which is basically just Rooster Teeth West, because Rooster Teeth is based in Texas, and then Funhouse is one of their companies that's based in Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. So basically that building is becoming Rooster Teeth West, and they have like 2 podcasts that they do. They do a movie podcast, and then they do their own podcast, which is a rotating host every single week. So it's always like different topics and stuff. And one of my favorite bits that always happens, or it's been happening, is that one guy in that group named James Willems, if there's like a really dumb movie coming out, he will do like a segment that's like cleverly named, and it's like, we're gonna just talk about this movie whenever I'm hosting. So he did a segment called Countdown to Cats.
Oh yeah.
And it ran for like about 2 months. So like once every 3 weeks, there'd be like a 5-minute segment at the end of the podcast where he would just talk trivia about the musical and like play dumb games with everybody else that was a part of the podcast. Is very dumb.
Mm-hmm.
And then when that finished, it concluded with like, here now the whole episode is just, we're going to review Cats, the movie, you know, which is pretty funny, you know.
I mean, there's a lot to break down there.
Lot to break down. Lot to break down.
Much to consider.
Everyone got really upset when he didn't do one for the Sonic movie.
I actually heard the Sonic movie was alright.
Well, yeah,
so.
it was all right. It ended up being...
They're getting a sequel.
Yeah. Yeah. He said that he didn't want to do it because he said, I wanted to do the Sonic one with what we were originally going to get, which was the ugly Sonic.
Yeah.
He was like, I would have done it for that movie, but not this one. Which, yeah, works. And now his segment is called, what's it called? It's something for Morbius. It's like blah, blah for Morbius. So he's been, and originally that movie was supposed to come out like last week. But it got delayed to 2021 because of our current standards, our current livelihood. So we'll talk about every once in a while. He'll talk about every 3 weeks. Oh, I screwed myself because originally I was only going to do this for 3 weeks or for 3 episodes. Now I have to do it for a whole year.
That's what Morbius would have wanted.
And he made like the dumbest intro sequence. It's so funny. It's so funny. And he's like, hey, welcome to blah, blah for Morbius. I'm here to tell you that there is no news this week for blah, blah for Morbius. So thank you for watching. And then it plays. It's like a 5-second segment. Last episode, it was super funny.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Overall, I listen to a lot of their content, which is very just, let's have a conversation of people in the entertainment industry.
Mm-hmm.
I've only seen one episode of it. I actually watched this episode and thought that you should check it out. It's called I Have Notes.
Okay.
And it's it's Rooster Teeth's animation department's podcast.
Okay.
So it's them talking about being artists and animators in the like professional industry.
Wait, that does sound pretty interesting.
Yeah, I watched like one episode of it, and it was basically them talking about how college didn't prepare them for this job. I was like, I should have just been making stuff instead of going to school. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I hear that one a lot from a lot of professionals just online.
Yeah.
Which is like, I'm so glad that I am essentially a full ride college scholarship student.
Yeah.
It's just a time sink at this point.
Yeah, basically. But specifically, the podcast that I wanted to talk about, which is currently my favorite one to listen to, it used to be only once a month, but is now because of coronavirus, it's once a week. Mm-hmm. Who knows if it'll probably go back to once a month when everything calms down again. Did you? What happened just now?
Oh, I've been playing with a binder clip underneath my camera this entire time.
I'm hearing it. So
yeah, sorry.
It's okay.
I'm just fidgety and my knitting is like on the floor behind me and I forgot to grab it before we started. So I've just been like playing with shit on my desk and I just clipped it to my laptop and it like smacked me in the...
Make sure fidgeting isn't super close to the microphone because then that'll be a disaster for me later.
2 feet away.
Okay, I'm not saying. I didn't say anything.
You forget these mics are sensitive as hell. Sorry.
You're fine.
Probably will go back to 1 week. Once a month
probably. Anyways,
after.
So this podcast is called Play, Watch, Listen. It's hosted by an employee of Funhouse, an ex-IGN journalist. She still does a bunch of like writing and stuff like that for Inside Gaming, which is Rooster Teeth's news network.
Yeah.
But she did a podcast where it's hosted by her, but her co-stars are Mike Bithell, who is the game director for the company that made Thomas Was Alone, which was a super like, it's an indie title that won a bunch of awards and stuff like that. They made the John Wick Hex game that came out. It's also has Austin Wintory, who is a music composer. He did the music for Journey, which won an Emmy or something like that.
All right, I'm familiar with that guy.
Yeah. He also was I snagged his music from the John Wick Hex soundtrack for the intro and outro music from last week's episode. His music is amazing. I listen to it a lot. He does a lot of YouTube stuff too. He did this whole breakdown of how his music works with the choices made in an FMV game that came out called Erica. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, he's made games music and so much stuff. Like when I was playing Assassin's Creed Syndicate, when I found out that he did the music for that, and I was like, oh, that makes sense. This music's really good. And then it's got Troy Baker, who's, talented voice actor. One of your guy crushes. One of my guy crushes, kind of. Yes, sort of. Troy, I know you're married and have a child, but call me.
I'm just saying, but the amount of times that you've talked about him, both in this podcast and in real life, I'm just
he's a cool dude.
Man Crush Monday.
I don't know what you're talking about. I do know what you're talking about. But the point is that this podcast, the Play Watch Listen, is a podcast that talks about one of my favorite things to talk about ever, which is video game politics. Mm-hmm. From the different perspectives of creators in the field.
Okay.
So like the biggest thing that happened recently with games is that like the Unreal Engine 5 tech demo for the PlayStation 5 was revealed. And they showed off like this 10-minute demo of what the next generation consoles will be capable of creating.
Okay. And
they're listening to it and they're just talking about it. And then the director, the Mike Bithell, the game director, or just from the perspective of the game director, will talk about why this demo is amazing and what this means for developers themselves.
Okay.
So like he's talking about like, oh, like a level of detail or LOD is not a thing anymore. And he's talking about all these little tiny aspects about like game development that are exciting to him as a developer. And then like Austin Wintory will talk about the same thing from his perspective as a games composer, where he's like, oh, the sound, what this thing does for like augmented sound in the area will create really cool effects with music if I do this or this or this.
Oh, okay.
And there's like really other things. Yeah, it is. And then like there was like a big thing that happened a couple weeks ago where the composer, I'm forgetting his name, but the composer for the newer Doom games, mm-hmm. That music is amazing. And it's really cool because the music moves in beat with the character. So the beats of the music will hit the same time you shoot the shotgun in the game and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Very cool stuff. But there was like a big debacle of like, hey, the official soundtrack came out for this game and it doesn't sound anything like the game. Why is that? It's like because the composer talked about how he didn't actually officially mix the official soundtrack and somebody else did. And they released like this big article talking about it and this and this and this. And so these guys just talked about it from their different perspectives. And that was a very Austin focused episode where it's like, as a composer, this can happen and this can happen. And they start like being hush hush about projects they're working on now. And it's just very entertaining. And they're all very funny as well. It's cool to hear the perspective of like this event happened from a journalist, a designer, a musician, and an actor.
Yeah. That I'll have to add that one to my list because that does sound really interesting. Mm-hmm.
They're like it's pretty new as well. It doesn't have like a whole lot of episodes. It's pretty good. They also have a tendency to just talk about Star Wars every once in a while too.
Yeah, well, that's just how it be sometimes.
That's just how it be sometimes. That's just how it be. Alana has another podcast that I don't listen to, but the concept of it sounds hilarious to me. It's called Red Lipstick Orange Car. I don't know why it's called that, but the podcast is basically, excuse me. They look at Reddit threads of like bad like stories about like dates like dating stories from Reddit and Craigslist and stuff like that. Anyways, Alana does podcasts that are technically a part of Rooster Teeth stuff, but not. It's all good. I like it. So basically, my end of the story is I listen to a lot of very structured podcasts that have certain goals, but then also just a lot of improv based. Let's just talk the bullshit, which is basically what this podcast is they talk the bullshit, but also has some structure every once in a while.
Yeah, once every 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay, so I got my start in podcasts because I went to a Welcome to Night Vale panel at a small convention here in Alaska back in probably 2014. And I didn't know what Welcome to Night Vale was. It is one of the biggest fictional podcasts out there. It's basically everybody's jump into fictional podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
And I have not listened to it in a while because I feel like it lost the plot a while back. At least it lost my interest. But it's about a radio host of a small town that shit goes weird often, but he acts like it's normal. Things that are weird in Night Vale are normal. Or things that are weird in real life are normal in Night Vale. And so, like, the guy or the people in charge of the radio station are an Eldritch tentacle monster. A 5-headed dragon ran for mayor and lost to... I can't remember if Tamika Flynn... Oh, no, Tamika Flynn... So, like, let's see. The city council is, like, a many physical formed yet one-mind entity that acts like a child.
Mm-hmm.
And an actual literal child is also a separate member of the city council now. Librarians kill and eat people.
Oh, good.
Subway has many entrances and no exits. It's really weird, but there's like an overarching plot of like why this town is the way it is that is really interesting. But that piqued my interest in not only fictional podcasts, but also horror podcasts.
Right.
I feel like podcasts are the perfect form for horror as it is today.
Yeah.
I feel that movies, there's a lot that goes on that can pull you out very quickly from being immersed in the horror. Books, some people can only get so engrossed in it. But with podcasts, you are relying on the consumer's imagination, and the audio element just makes it a really succinct form of horror. And so Night Vale's vaguely spooky, but real horror is where it's at. The Magnus Archives is where it's at.
I think more than any other podcast, Magnus Archives is the one that I hear you talk about the most.
It is the one that currently I am basically obsessed with. Taz is great and is going to be one that I will always listen to. I am caught up and it is super good right now. Travis, who plays Magnus in Taz Balance, which is the one you're listening to, he's DMing for Graduation. Very good. I could talk about that for a while. But the Magnus Archives, I actually started listening to it when it first came out. I listened to the first 3 episodes and decided it wasn't for me and put it off until I saw somebody else talking about it on Twitter. And holy shit, dude. It is genuinely scary.
Yeah.
It is.
And that's specifically why I haven't been listening to it.
Yeah, I've gotten... Let's see. I got my friend Violet to binge listen to it, and I got my friend Hunter to get to about episode 69 or 72. I think that's somewhere right around where he's at. And it is... I am not going to spoil anything because the twists of the show make it better, but it basically follows the structure of archived reports of spooky going-ons in London and, eventually in America. But they are archived reports of things like paranormal beings or objects and people's interactions thereof or with them.
So it's not like a continued plot with characters. It's just...
Not at first.
Not at first. Okay.
the first probably 20 episodes are pretty separate. Like, it is, this guy is trying, the main character, John, is trying to organize the archives. He took over from his predecessor, Gertrude Robinson, who died on duty as the head archivist. She's like a little old lady, so he's just like, she probably had a heart attack or something. But he's like a 28-year-old guy that's just like stuffy and like, ugh, I hate everybody. This archive is a mess. We're gonna sort it out. And so he records the statements so that they have like an audio copy and a physical copy to sort it by.
Right.
And eventually it builds up into this kind of overarching plot where one of the monsters that's featured in the statements actually like does show up and attacks them. And so like by talking about all this spooky stuff, it actually starts to like, he actually starts to find evidence and things that connect it all. And currently they're in their final season, which has escalated greatly, and kind of the form that the statements take now later in the seasons are really different, but in a way that's unfortunately a great commentary on society today.
Oh, good. That's great.
Yeah, it is. Ooh. Some of it's genuinely scary. Episode 10, Lost John's Cave, is generally where people get really sucked into the horror element. It is about a lady who goes spelunking with her sister, like cave exploring, and they do a dive underwater to get to a different part of the cave. And they end up kind of slipping into the space that they don't recognize. It's not on any of the maps. And they don't know what happened to her sister. She disappeared. It's called Lost John's Cave because two people went in. The guy, John, disappeared. The other guy came out. Same thing happens to these people.
Right.
Basically. But there's actually like an audio element in that episode where if you listen like really carefully, you can hear a different voice actress, not the person reading the statement, being like, take her, not me. Take her, not me.
Oh gosh, that's cool.
And it adds such a depth to it that is genuinely terrifying, especially if you're claustrophobic or afraid of the dark or afraid of drowning.
Oh no.
Two of those things I am.
Same.
Yeah, so it's like, it's really good, and it touches on basically anything that you are afraid of happens in the show, except for things like sexual violence and things of a sexual nature basically don't happen in this. That is not the kind of horror they're relying on. There is body horror, people getting burned alive, but there is never any non-consensual sex or even like kissing noises.
Okay.
Thank God. It is horror that actually relies on things being scary, not people being forced into things against their. I'm just really happy to know rape scenes, basically.
Yes. Right.
It is something that they're very solid on. Like, we can make horror without relying on this thing that so many people rely on.
Well, I'm trying to think of movies that, I know movies do it, obviously, but like, I'm trying to think of movies off the top of my head that like rely on that though.
It's a lot of written horror relies on it too.
Okay. And that's where it makes sense to me. Because like, you know, I tried to get into reading like horror stuff, and
I can't get into it.
I wasn't into it. Honestly, it was hard for me to become like enthralled in it. It was like, I was like, it sounds like I'm reading bad comedy. Yeah.
It's very hard to get into, but audio wise, it's something.
Oh, I mean, the best thing about a horror movie is it's the sound design. So in my head, I'm like, oh yes, actually a podcast would be the perfect place to tell a horror story. But that's also why I don't do it, because like that sounds terrifying.
I was listening to there is an episode later on in the series where things start to like get real and people are actually being attacked that work for the archive. And there is an episode about like being scared of the dark, and this kind of like the dark entity like standing in the doorway. Yeah. And then blink and it comes closer. Blink, it comes closer. And so like the person's solution is to hide under the blanket. And then by the end of it, was like written in like this dark bloody stuff on the wall or on the ceiling. Like, so the person like pulled down their blanket over their head and there was a message and it said the blanket didn't do anything. And then like the statement ends and it's like, this person was found dead in their house. That's weird. And it actually scared me to the point. Sorry to like spoil that one because it's such a good episode.
Yeah.
Like, I was so scared of that. I listened to it while I was at work at the dairy, the middle of winter. It is pitch black outside, cloudy night, the wind is howling. And I am like petrified, job totally finished, stuck in one place in the milk parlor. Like, if I move, something's gonna get me right now. If I go out the door, something's gonna be there. I know that this is irrational, but my body is literally paralyzed from fear.
I get you. I remember you.
There is something here.
I remember you texted me. There was like a night that you were like waiting for your ride from your job, and you were like, I'm gonna keep texting you. And I'm like, really? It's like, yeah, I was listening to this podcast, and now I don't like the dark, so I'm just gonna keep talking to you. And I'm like, yeah, all right. Yeah. I am safe in my home. Safe. I did the dinosaur claw thing again. Outdoors,
and there were noises, and the cats weren't around. If the cats are around, I know that their cats are way better tuned into like paranormal things. So if the cats are there and chill, it's like, okay, yeah, sure. I know this is fake, but anyway, the cats are here, so it's fine. But if there's nothing, not a single living thing around, no. Like, screw that. I am staying where I am. Tacos, get out here. Thank you.
How familiar are you with Silent Hill?
Vaguely. I have actually watched one of the Silent Hill horror movies.
Okay. So
when I was 13.
Yes.
Only vaguely.
So the movies are, the first movie at least it's pretty good. It's not a bad movie. Mm-hmm. The story of the Silent Hill games and those plots are nuts. They're the stories and the writing themselves and the audio design for those games is amazing. Yeah. The problem with those games is you have to play them. And the gameplay isn't bad. It's like classic Resident Evil, so it's like stuck camera perspectives and bad controls and stuff. Yeah. But unlike Resident Evil, the purpose of the Silent Hill games is to tell the story. So a lot of the times, like, combat is not difficult in those games, kind of thing, you know? And there's dumb puzzles and stuff. There's a puzzle in the third Silent Hill game that if you put the puzzle difficulty on hard, it requires you to memorize entire Shakespearean texts to like complete a segment. And it's like, that's nuts. Oh, damn. So the plots of those games, I'm most familiar with 2 because that's my favorite one. And it's probably the most infamous one because it's got Pyramid Head in it. But those games get super nuts, and like the plot is every single enemy design and every single thing that you encounter in those games is somebody has a very loud engine outside. But every single enemy design and every single moment in those games is like, this is the main character's head and something from their perspective that they are altering and stuff like that. And there's a reason for everything. There's like enemies that walk around and like they walk like very limp-like and their arms are trapped inside and stuff like that. And they're like, well, why are they like this? Like, well, it's because this guy the main character of this game sexually assaulted somebody in like a younger age. So when he goes to Silent Hill, which is a place based off of when you walk into this place, if you're a bad person, you're going to pay for your sins. Mm-hmm. He's literally getting attacked by condom monsters because he didn't use protection. Okay. There's some very literal stuff in there that when you hear it like explained, it's like, what the shit? And there's some other stuff. There's some stuff that's like not good design in those. But what I was going to say is that if there was ever a way for you specifically to like experience the stories of those games without like it being like without having to play them. It's really hard to play those games now. It's hard to find them because the easiest way to get them is the HD collection, and that version of those games is bad. So it's just straight up awful. But if there was a way for you to experience like the plot and like the writing and the voice work of those games, like I would highly recommend it.
I mean, somebody probably has a non-voiced over YouTube playthrough.
Yeah, there's definitely that, you know. So if that's like something you've ever been interested in, those stories are nuts. At least Silent Hill 1, 2, 3, and Shattered Memories. After that, you don't need to do anymore.
Okay.
Because 4 is not great. Silent Hill 5 is god awful. Like basically from 4 onward, it's like, you don't need to. These games are bad.
Okay, fair enough.
The 1, 2, and 3 are classics and very good.
I didn't mean to wax so long about each of the other podcasts I've talked about. So we should probably do another podcast episode eventually so that I could actually talk about Taz, and then touch on some others that I really liked, like I talked about Night Vale. I listened to the podcast, dang it. Bright Sessions. Bright Sessions is great. Wolf 359. Superhero Therapy and Space Caper, respectively. And then Archives 81, which is also horror, but I haven't really gotten into it quite yet. What else?
There's a lot of podcasts out there.
Old Gods of Appalachia, I will say nothing, but I would recommend listening to it.
Yeah.
It is phenomenally written.
I think long story short, there's a lot of podcasts that are probably nowhere near as good as ours, because ours is the best podcast you've ever listened to, ever.
We didn't even talk about Aegis podcast. Like, I honestly expected that to be both of our first ones, and that's why I didn't touch on it.
I also, like, I just didn't talk about it that much. I don't listen to those episodes fully. I need to sit down and like listen to them more, you know. And I like the podcast. A lot of the times it's just like it's news for our local shop, you know. And so part of me is like, well, that's not necessarily something that is like if somebody for some reason in California is listening to our podcast, they may not find enjoyment in hearing about a local shop in Alaska's. Like what books are coming in and all that stuff. When they start talking about the overall stuff of comic books, I'm like, yes, that works.
Yeah, I think it feels like there's a lot more of that stuff though in the podcast. It's just like really great general information. Yeah. And so that's why I keep recommending it.
It's definitely a podcast I recommend, and we'll go into the link regardless because I do enjoy it. But
yes.
Hey,
sequel podcast later.
Yeah, well, we might talk about podcasts again. We also, you know,
we're definitely gonna, because that's all I listen to. It's the only form of media I enjoy. So we are going to talk about more podcasts. He's saying maybe, but this is not when
I want to keep them on their. I want to keep them on the edge of their seat. Like, who knows what we'll talk about in another episode.
Podcast next week, but we are talking about podcasts again later. Don't worry. You will have all of my hot takes, which are screaming about things I enjoy.
Don't listen to Olivia. She don't know what she's talking about.
She do.
But yes, we'll probably talk about podcasts. Hey, Olivia doesn't want us to talk about podcasts again because she hates podcasts. So
you caught me, dang.
Just no, she can't.
You know me playing video games 24/7.
Livia, you can't hear me right now. I'm talking to the audience.
Chase, my microphone is hooked up to these headphones. I can't hear you.
Shit. Crap.
And you know what I'm surprised we never talked about?
What?
Like, we have not talked about, like, any art stuff. I have been drawing every dang day for a month, and I never got to slip Mermaid into here, and, like, the month is over now.
Hey, happy Mermaid. Happy
Mermaid.
Mermaid.
Hey, check out my art Instagram at redcannoli.art.
I was literally going to text you today saying like, hey, can I link your stuff like on like
do it.
The YouTube page and all that stuff? Because I started connecting all of our social network stuff to it today.
My iPad signed me out of everything, and now I can't remember how to get into our Twitter. I am working on it.
Don't worry about it. It's okay. Nobody follows it.
Yeah, because I haven't posted on it because I got signed out less than a week after putting it on.
I picked. Do you just need the password?
I think I need the password and the email again.
Okay, I have both of those. You picked the pass. It doesn't matter. We're not talking about this on the podcast. Hey guys, the podcast is done. Go home.
Get out of here. What are you doing here still?
Go back. So what you all need to do is go back, listen to every single episode we have made again for no reason other than just we want the views.
Messages.
Yes, this is actually a horror podcast.
Yes, they actually tell you where the location of our corpses are.
Yes.
We need you to find us so that we can finally get some rest. Because I'm going to be working the night shift and I'm tired already and I need the
squeaks
rest.
In my chair is actually Morse code that tells you exactly where we are so that you can save us from Pyramid Head.
Yes. Come to Silent Hill.
Silent Hill, where Pyramid Head is hanging around with his girlfriend, Triangle Girl. It's not true. That's fake.
That sounds fake as heck.
It's fake. It's fake. Hey, it's fake, everybody.
Sick fake, bro. All right, this has been Doing It Live.
It's done. Go home. We're done.
Goodbye.
Go listen to these other podcasts, but not